Okay, hi. I'm just experimenting, doing another live. It's come that time that I need to give my watches a bit of a wind. So, any of the watches I got, which are mechanical, every couple of weeks, you need to give them a bit of a wind just to make sure they don't get seized up. So, that's what I'm doing today. Not all my watches are mechanical, so this is pretty much the collection I got at the moment. So there's quite a few there, all different types of watches. Some very cheap, some a little bit more expensive. Most of these I've just purchased from eBay for not a lot of money, and I've kind of cleaned them up. Sometimes put a strap on them, polished them up a bit. And anything I really like the fancy, like the look of, I've kept hold of. So I'll be winding the watches that need winding. There's some more modern stuff there which won't need winding. Some Invictas, Seikos, Pagani design. Some there we've got which are quartz but do need winding is the Omega Constellation is an automatic. So we'll just give that a bit of a shake. We've got a Seiko. A couple of those unfortunately don't even work, but I've kept hold of them. Russian one and the Jump one. So we'll get to those in a minute. So what we've got in this first box that needs winding, let's have a look. So this is a East German Bituna, which I purchased off eBay just for a few pounds. Can't remember exactly. There's a video about this on my channel. And it's come up really nicely. I gave that a good old polish up, good clean up. And this does work, keeps good time. This watch is an association between Eastern Germany and Tunisia. That's why it's called the Bituna. That was the place. I think Bituna is half to do with the place in Eastern Germany and half to do with the Tunisia. And they were handing these out to diplomats and people like that to have better relationship with Tunisia. You can say it says day dat. So let's just give it a little wind. Hopefully it's going to work because I've not used this for a little while. Give it a shake. Yeah, there we go. This is why you need to wind them. It's been very cold. My house is cold. It's kind of like high ceilings, Victorian. So it's not always the warmest. So these watches get pretty cold and they get a bit reluctant to work because the mechanisms, I think, get a little bit gummed up and cold. So that's, with a tiny bit of persuasion, is working. So we've given that a wind. So I keep that. It's quite interesting. Didn't cost a lot of money. The East German watches are quite unusual. And you can actually wear that. It's not a bad size. Just for a few pounds. So the one next to it is another East German one, which is more recognizable, the Arula. I think this one runs a bit fast. I've kept hold of it because I gave it a good clean up. The crystal was a little bit scratched up on this, but this was only a few pounds. But these are quite collectible, and it's working there. But it is running a little bit fast. It's not one I wear, so it's basically operational. I just wanted a couple of these East German watches because they're quite historically kind of interesting. And they're kind of like a no-nonsense. They're not really high quality, but they're built pretty well. They last pretty well. So the one next to that is I bought this Citizen Eagle 7. So it's a little automatic. You can't wind these. They're automatic. So they work by movement on the wrist. So I'll give this a little bit of a shake. And this is usually pretty reliable. This should, yeah, there it goes. Nice little watch. These were basically Citizen's version of the Seiko 5. So they were a movement which is reliable, economical. They're quite kind of, they're nice little watches. They're not super high end quality, but they're just like a fairly inexpensive way to get an automatic watch, which was the same what Seiko were doing. And they came out with different models. So this one, it's a little bit like my Omega Pi Pan, which I've got over here. It's just reminded me, it's got like a bit of a 3D look to the dial. They're both kind of similar, not exactly the same, but you've got this kind of Pi Pan, what they call a Pi Pan dial. And it isn't 3D, it's flat. But the way they've designed the dial is it looks like at the bottom of a pie pan or dish, because it gives you that kind of 3D look, but it is actually flat. It's just a trick. It's just like an illusion. So while we're here with the Citizen, this Omega, really nice Constellation, very collectible. This came to me in inheritance. I was very lucky with this. It's not solid gold, it's gold plated, but again, I don't think you can wind this one. I think it's automatic, and it just works with the movement of the rotor that winds it. So when I got this, it was pretty grotty. The bracelet wasn't attached, it was broken. It was missing a couple of links. I've still got to turn this one round. They're really fiddly to do on this, very fiddly. It's got like a spring bar. It took me a while to work out how to actually adjust the bracelet on this. Usually you'd have like a screw-in link, or you'd have a push link pin that goes all the way through. But on these, they basically have like a spring bar in between. So you push in the hole there. Can you see the hole there? And then the pin will come out the middle. And then you've got all these links that want to turn round. And it's like a Chinese puzzle trying to get it all together. You've got to have a bit of dexterity to get that spring bar back in, all the links facing right round, all in your hand, and get it back in. It's not easy. It took a while, but I did manage it. I've still got one link that needs turning round, and the only way to do that would be to take the spring bar out again, get it round the right way, and they're all kind of loose at the same time. It's hard to explain, but it's a bloody nightmare. So to get that working, it's just basically giving them a bit of a wind so they don't seize up with lack of use, like anything. If you've got a car or anything like that, and I'm going to have to do the same thing. I've got a Porsche Boxster. It's been set out there in the cold. I keep it on optimizer. I try to charge it up. It's on a solar panel optimizer thing at the moment, but it's not getting a lot of light. I need to give that a run as well. But the roads are still wet. We had a bit of rain here last night, and I don't want to get the thing dirty. So I thought I'd do this instead. I'm going to wait for a drier day to take the Boxster out for a good thrashing. Yeah, so that's working nicely. Pop that back. So what's the other one? So this is another little Citizen I got. It's called a Parawater automatic. Pretty old, 1970s. Apparently quite collectible. Again, just paid a few pounds for this. Just, you know, you look at a lot of stuff on eBay and you won't win it. And occasionally something comes up, no one else seems to be interested in it, and you get it for a good price. So again, I don't think you can wind this. It's quite an early one. It just needs winding like this. Get the rotor to wind it. Yeah, and off it goes. I mean, to me, that's not the most interesting looking watch. It's definitely a style. Oh, yeah, I mean, it has got some interesting kind of faceted case. So when you look at it, if I remember rightly on this, has it got the faceted? Yeah, so it's got domed crystal, but the case itself just has a little bit more kind of different angles. But apart from that, it's generally, to me, it's not a bad looking watch. I haven't worn it as yet, but I think it keeps pretty good time. But it's quite an important watch. It's collectible. It's the Citizen Parawater. I'm not a massive Citizen fan, but if you are collecting watches, you're going to probably end up with a couple of Citizens, just because there's so many of them around. And if you want to, you know, collect watches from different brands, especially the most popular ones, you're probably going to find yourself eventually owning a vintage Citizen. So yeah, that's not bad. I haven't worn it as yet, but I'll keep it in for now. So what watches I'll be keeping and what watches I'll be selling in this coming year, I don't know. It's something I've got to make a decision on. I've sold some of the old rubbish stuff that I couldn't fix. They've gone. I did a bundle of watches. Probably lost a few quid on those. But I listed watches separately as well. So anything that I bought off eBay that didn't turn out, didn't like it, cleaned it up, didn't work, whatever, I'll whack it back on eBay. And I've done that. So this one's a really cool little watch. This little Sunray. I think this cost me a couple of pounds. Very, very cheap. It was. So if you look back at my videos, you'll find this video I did on this watch. It was absolutely filthy. It was crusted in green gunge and oxidization and God knows what. The strap was absolutely filthy, but it cleaned up really nice. There is still some pitting to the case, where I think it was sat for so long it kind of attacks the chrome plating or whatever that metal is. So let's give this a wind. This, again, was working perfectly and keeping really good time. And I think this is from the 1940s. It's a really early watch. It's got an interesting second hand. So if you look at that second hand, it's like a red spear. And the dial itself with the additional kind of numbering around, which I guess is like a basic kind of way of timing something, gives it a bit of a military watch appearance. But it's obviously quite a small watch. I think it's about 30mm, as they were in those days. But I really like that. This is one of those things you can go on eBay. I have to look back at my videos to see exactly what I paid for that, but I think it was literally a couple of pounds. It wasn't much, a little bit on postage, probably something like a fiver, and you got yourself a 1940s watch, and it's got a nice movement in there, good quality, run-in, wearable, although it is on this. I mean, these straps, I think this is a Fixoflex, isn't it? I think it's a Fixoflex strap, stainless steel. They do kind of pull your hairs a little bit, but it's a nice watch. And I have actually worn that on occasion, just because it's just so cool. And I've only got 6.5-inch wrists, so if I pop that on at the moment, I'm just wearing, for today, because I haven't worn it forever, and I might sell this on. So just for today, I mean, it's just Sunday, I just pulled this out to wear it. It's very light. It's a Skagen, which is a Danish watch manufacturer. And these usually come, it's a titanium, comes with a titanium strap, but I absolutely buggered the strap on this. So I had to put this NATO style one on, which was really difficult to put on because there's absolutely no gap between the pin, between the split pin, spring bar, sorry, and this edge here. So I had to kind of bend the spring bar a bit, pull it through with pliers to get this strap on because it's so slim. But I like the design, it's very architectural. I've still got the titanium bracelet, but I had this strap hanging around. I stuck it on there. I kind of like it on it. I don't know why. It kind of suits it a little bit. But yeah, I quite like these Skagens. They're quite interesting. Again, paid like a tenner or something for this, but I might sell this with the damaged strap because I don't wear it. I kind of had my fun with it for a little while, and that's why I thought I'd put it on, see if I want to actually sell it or not. I'm just kind of making up my mind on that one. So yeah, let's go back to the little sunray. So yeah, I mean, it's a small watch, but it fits pretty perfectly. I just love the patina on that. So I think it's kind of like 1940s. Yeah, I think that's kind of one of my favourite watches, one of the cheapest watches I bought. And it's one of my favourites. It's not mint, it's not like highly polished or anything like that. I've got it cleaned up as best as I can. But it's one of those items which shows its age and still works. I love that. I used to have old Lambrettas. I haven't got one at the moment. I've had quite a few vintage kind of motorbikes and stuff like that. Haven't got a motorbike at the moment. So I had sports bikes. I had a Ducati. Got rid of that during COVID. Kind of like lived through motorbikes, survived, and I'm not sure if I'm getting another one. But what I'm getting back to is I had like a 1960s Lambretta Li 150, and it was original paint from Italy, and it had such good patina. And I bought it off a guy who completely mechanically restored it, put all modern electric ignition in instead of points, and had a GP crank 200, all this stuff. So mechanically, Lambrettas can be quite unreliable. So with those things done, it was nice and reliable. But what it did have was fantastic patina from being in Italy. It hadn't rusted. It wasn't a rust bucket. It had the original light blue kind of paint. They had a very thin paint on them, and you could see a bit of surface rust here and there, but it was solid. And I love that. I just find that fascinating. I love old cars or bikes or scooters where they haven't been restored to the nth degree. I mean, it's nice to see a restored one that looks like brand new, but I think also it's nice to see something that shows its age and is still working. You know, so you've got like obviously some wear and you've got this and that, and it's kind of clean, but it shows its age. And I think there's something about that because once you've restored them, they're never original again, are they? Once, like especially with, you've got to be ever so careful with some of these old motorbikes. They call them oily rag motorbikes. I quite like that. You find something. I had an old NSU 1958, and it was just like original paint, everything, original bit of surface rush, and it ran. And I used to just go around on that thing. It was just so much fun. And people will come and talk to you about it because it just looks so unusual and it's got the old patina. So yeah, I like that. I'm not getting rid of that. It's probably not worth a lot of money anyway. And it's working perfectly, very good quality. So we put that back, giving that a wind. So I'm jumping around these watch boxes. Anything else to wind? So there's nothing else to wind in that box. We've done that one. Okay, you can see the rest are quartz. They're all working. I don't need to check those. This one here is another automatic Legion by Legion. which is, you know, I think I researched this a little bit. It's quite a nice quality automatic. Again, I don't think it winds, from the 1970s. Very slim indeed. Really nice profile. Really nice quality, actually, case. Very early 1970s looking. I paid, I think I did a video on this, paid next to nothing, gave it a good clean up. It didn't have a strap with it, so I purchased that strap from AliExpress, I think, for a couple of quid. And this was a weird one. It was very difficult to get those spring bars to fit. I had to bend those spring bars. You can see it's quite a curve there. A straight spring bar just wouldn't fit. So I had to kind of carefully bend spring bars, which sounds easy, but it was quite tricky just to get it right, because the leather was always trying to push it away and I couldn't quite get it to click into the hole. So it was a bit of a task, but got that. So let's give that a wind. Hopefully it's working. Yep, off we go. Because, as I say, we've had a real cold winter. I've not wound these for a couple of weeks or so. The room where they are gets pretty cold, so if there's going to be any issues, it's probably going to be on this winding. Once the weather gets slightly warmer, I think the oil gets slightly warmer. You know, the oils and greases and whatnot in the watches are slightly warmer, so less chance of them sticking. But that's ticking away nicely. Again, I'll probably keep this in the collection. It didn't cost me much. It's probably not worth much, but it's just an interesting watch. Looks pretty good. I have actually worn that on one evening, I think. That comes to another automatic, which, I mean, I love this watch. This is the first decent vintage watch that I bought when I started collecting nearly 2 years ago. I kind of started collecting and buying stuff off eBay. And I paid, I think it was like £27 for this. I was very lucky, but it was grotty. It was really grotty, but it was working. And I had to polish up the crystal. I used like a whitening toothpaste, and I polished up the case. It's kind of brushed on the front and more highly polished on the edges. And there was quite a few scratches. I spent a bit more time on this and got it looking really nice. I think I may have lightly cleaned the dial. I can't remember on this. I think I might have got the movement out, and very, very lightly, because I can't remember. I think I did. It was a long time ago. It might be on the video. I did a video on this, and it has got, I didn't realize for ages, someone told me, I couldn't work out how to change the date, but you can press the crown and that changes the date. So you learn all these things. A lot of watches, to change the date, sometimes you have to go between 10 and 12 backwards and forwards, and it changes it. On most watches now, you pull out the crown and you just get to a certain place, like clicks, and then you can turn it and it'll change the date. But on this one, you push the crown in. Got the Tissot emblem on the crown. Again, I don't think this one winds. I think it just works by giving it a shake. Now this has a, so this Tissot C Star from the 1970s has a really good movement. This has the Omega movement in it. Can't remember the name, the number, something like 326, something like that, I can't remember. But I looked it up. So the movement inside this one is the same they put on the Omega, blah, 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 blah. What is it? Not C Star. Their version of the C Star. Seamaster. Is it Seamaster? Of that age. So it shares, it's a really good quality movement in this. This was a very good buy, and it keeps really good time. And I've worn this a few times. I purchased this strap, this leather strap, for it. I think I purchased that from AliExpress as well. You can get some quite good deals on these straps, if you don't mind waiting a week, whatever, for them to arrive. Right. The focus on this camera is terrible. Yeah, lovely, lovely batons. Beautiful looking watch. And these are pretty collectible, especially with this movement in, I think. So, next one. This one again is really interesting. It's the Smith's Astrolon, which has a maintenance-free movement, which is made by Tissot, I do believe. So this was the last hurrah kind of for mechanical watches, trying to compete with the quartz watches which were coming through. So quartz watches basically finished this cheap movement, not cheap, well, it's made by this plastic, I'll show you. The movement is maintenance free, it's not designed to be serviced or anything like that. And the same technology, I think, went into swatches in the end. So this is the Smith Astrolon, another one cleaned up. This was really grotty, this watch. Took a lot of polishing up and cleaning up, and I put a nice new strap on it. Now, to wind this one, it's not automatic. You do wind it. It's a bit hit and miss because it's getting old. It sometimes doesn't want to, you can hear it, it kind of like misses the click. So it will wind. I see it's catching now. So when it catches, it winds. But sometimes it kind of misses it. Yeah. So this is the maintenance-free movement, which is quite interesting. Lots of plastic parts in there. And this didn't cost me much money either. I think I got a really good deal on this. If you're interested, you have to look through my videos. You'll see the video where I bought this and tell you everything I did to it and the price I bought it for, which I can't remember, but it was a few pounds. And that was a good deal because these are actually collectible, and that is worth, I don't know, not a huge amount of money, but certainly more than I paid for it. And it's working, and it keeps pretty good time. And it's basically Tissot. The Tissot watch shares exactly the same movement, but Smiths did it as well. It's quite chunky, quite a nice size, and it doesn't even look bad. It's not a bad looking watch. I have worn that a couple of times. Yeah, a real chunky piece of metal that. So let's pop that back. And the next one, yeah, I'm not sure if this one's going to work. The next one, let's have a look. This one, what is this? Oh yeah, this one is a Citicon. So this is some kind of, yeah, I've got to take this off because I can't remember. It's kind of like a fake Citizen, but it's not a Citizen. It's not a fake Citizen, but it's like a kind of looky-likey. It's called Citicon Deluxe. And it's just a really funky, it's not bad quality, mechanical watch. It's stainless steel. You've got this real 70s looking leather strap, which I liked. It's so kind of 1970s prog rock look to it. And it's got an interesting crystal, which is got kind of faceted. I don't know if that's the right word, but if you look at the crystal, you can see it's not flat domed. It's got like a kind of faceted edges to it. It's like that, you see? Kind of slope down in places. and it's got this highly polished hexagonal type case. You can see the kind of hexagonal looking. The dial's interesting. It's just a real interesting watch. It's not like mega high quality, but it is pretty interesting. Let's see if it works. I can't remember. I think this watch was a bit hit and miss, if I remember. Give it a shake. Yeah, so it's probably, I think it's in dire need of a service, which I'm not going to pay to have this service because it is only a few pounds and it wouldn't be worth that much service. Just an interesting one to keep because just the look of it, the shape of it. It's obviously from the 1970s. It's kind of working a bit, but not reliably enough to wear. I mean, someone knew what they're doing and had the right tools, they could probably service that quite easily, cheaply themselves. But I'm not going to go and pay, you know, service cost to have that serviced, because I probably won't wear it. It's just nice to keep in the collection because it's just so unusual. So that's that one. It is basically working. Again, just a few pounds. And then we've got this little Montaigne, which I've just done a video of. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this. It's a little automatic Swiss watch they used to sell on aeroplanes. You do see these come up. You can pick them up for about 20 quid. It's in not bad condition, but this does work. You can wind this one. I think you can actually wind this one as well. I'm just giving that. I had that going yesterday, so I know this works. So I was wearing this yesterday, so won't spend too much time on that. But I may sell that on, not quite sure. I had one before and it packed up. One I had before was actually better nick than this one. This one's got a few more scratches and things on it, but this one is working. That's the big difference. This one's working nicely. They got quite a nice little automatic. It's an automatic 25 jewel movement in there. So let's get on to this one. So this is an Invicta. So you might have heard of Invicta. They obviously make, let's grab an Invicta out. So that was my first Invicta I bought. So that's what most people think of Invicta as. That's when the American company bought them, and they started doing kind of like Rolex homage type watches, and they do loads of crazy style watches as well. But they're pretty good quality. They're good value for money in most part. That was about 60 odd quid. That's a quartz one, but I've got an automatic one. That's obviously a homage of the Rolex Daytona. So I don't wear it that often because it's the white hands, basically the white hands against the white dial. I can't see very well without my glasses on, so it's just not that practical, but it's a beautiful watch. Anyway, let's put that back, so we're not talking about that. That's Invicta, modern Invicta. This is Invicta, the original Invicta, when it was a Swiss manufacturer, watch manufacturer. It actually predates Rolex. So Invicta were a really well, quite high-end watch company based in Switzerland, and they were making, dress watches, all different types of watches for many years until the American brand took them over. So this one is from the 1950s. And then again, another watch bought just for a few pounds. It was in pretty nasty state. I've given it a really good clean up. I've got it looking as pretty much as good as I can. I think it's still on the original strap. It does work. It's running a bit fast. This again could probably do with a proper service. I've got a video about this on my channel. I managed to get this going. It wasn't working at all, but I managed to kind of revive it by doing something you shouldn't really do. I used a little bit of lighter fluid, just a drop on top of the jewel, and it sprung it into life. And ever since then, it has actually basically been working, but it's a little bit fast. So it would benefit from a proper service, but it is still working, which is better than it sitting there not working, I think. Again, it's not something I'm probably going to wear. It's a bit fancy looking, but it's very interesting of that style with this bullseye dial. It's pretty collectible. So it's not, it's not a bad investment. Real 1940s, 50s looking style there. So I'm going to keep hold of that because I've got a couple of Invictas, and it was just nice to have one of the originals when they're a proper Swiss watch manufacturer. And it's beautiful movement in. If you look at the video that I did to this, I take the back off and you can see the movement, and you can see quite how high quality the movement is. It probably was on par with Rolexes of that time. It was similar kind of quality, I would say. I'm not an expert, by the way, not in the slightest. I just started buying vintage watches, got no clue really, apart from when I buy something, I learn a bit more about it. So this one, because I'm kind of buying vintage watches, I didn't want to spend much money. I don't have a lot of money to invest in vintage watches, but I'm looking for bargains. And I thought, I want a Longines, and spent a while trying to find one for not too much money. This one came up. I think I paid about £80 for this one, and it's beautiful. I love it. It's got, like I said a while back, it's got that original patina. I gave this a good clean up. It wasn't too bad, and it works pretty well. Should do. Yeah, give it a wind. Very, very nice movement in this. Really high quality. And I like the style. It's got a kind of a milled case. Don't know if the light can pick it up. Like a coinage, or coin edge, I should say. It's a kind of case. And it's got this kind of like Art Deco look to it, which I like. Reminds you of those kind of aeroplanes of the 1930s, 1920s. Yeah, lovely watch. I'm going to keep hold of that, I think. It's not going to be one I'm going to sell. It's nice to have a Longines. And at that money, I don't think I've done too far. Wrong, £80. I should, I don't think I'd lose too much money on that. So I'll keep hold of that. And that brings me to this one. So this is probably one of the most expensive ones that I've bought. So I wanted a Tudor. So I got a Longines. I'm thinking, of course I want a Rolex, but they were going too much money. So I started looking into Tudors. This one is 1947 Tudor Oyster. And this one I tried to buy a few times and didn't. And then it sold, and then the person didn't pay for it. So I got this for quite a good price because I think people were kind of a bit scared off with it. They'd seen it come up on eBay a few times, and because it had fallen through, I think it gave people, the heebie-jeebies or whatever, a little bit with it. But I could see that it was a good, genuine watch. The guy had serviced it and he had polished up the case. And I looked through all the completed listings. I actually found the watch before he got hold of it. So I knew it was original. So I found this watch, and it just looked in an unpolished state, and it didn't have a strap. He put this cheap kind of Jubilee strap on. I've got a leather strap for it as well. So I knew it was a genuine watch, and he'd done basically a service on it. And I paid just over £300 for this. And it is the Oyster. It's from the Rolex watch company. It's got Rolex RWC stamp on there. Rolex watch company, beautiful movement. It has a screw down crown, so they've got to be a bit careful with this because its weakness is, with these watches is it's mechanical. And every time you need to wind this watch, you need to unscrew the crown. And that's why I've got the crown unscrewed. So basically I can wind it without having to screw the crown onto the crown tube with the thread, because if that gets threaded, you know what I mean by cross-threaded, then I've got a problem. So it's fine, it will screw up, but I'm thinking the less times I have to do that, the less chance I've got of it. So I leave it open, and hopefully I can just give that a wind. And that watch keeps perfect time. As I said, the chap had serviced it before I bought it. I've worn this a few times. And that's got original kind of patina on the kind of champagne coloured dial. It's not mint, it's showing its age, although it has had a bit of a case polish. So some people probably won't like that, but it does look a lot better than the first photos of it. You know, the first listing I found of it, which he obviously bought it from eBay and did the work on it. And he only paid about £100 less than I did, and he's done all this work. So I think for £300 for a working Tudor Oyster, I don't think I've done too bad. I don't know what the prices are now. And it's a good size as well. It's not 30. I think it's 36 millimeter. So I put it on my wrist. It's a good size you could wear. It's not, you know, a minuscule size. Next to, for instance, the Sunray one. You can see it's a bit bigger. So that's your usual size for that kind of age of watch. You're usually looking at a 30 millimeter or 27, and this 36 is a much more modern kind of size. Still looks good. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to keep hold of that. Now, and that is, if that does stop working, that's one that's worth getting serviced, obviously, because you're into a bit more value now, and that would be worth getting serviced. But I don't wear it very often. It's going to give it a wind every couple of weeks, so hopefully it won't need servicing for a long, long time, as he's just had it done just over a year or so ago when I bought it. Okay, so the next one. So this is the actual first vintage watch that I purchased. This was the first one. If you've seen me talk about this before, I do apologise, but not everyone would have seen the previous videos. So this Bolivar is what got me into vintage watches. I paid £20, something like this, for this. I've been chasing one for quite a long time, and I've said the story before, but I was watching some old The Saint with Roger Moore, black and white ones on TV, and obviously James Bond, Roger Moore played James Bond, didn't he, as well? And we all know the Omega Seamaster is the kind of like the James Bond watch. But I thought, I wonder what the Saint wore, you know, because that was a kind of James Bondy type character, and kind of looked it up, and I could see he was wearing a watch, but I couldn't quite. It looked quite cool, so I kind of Googled it, found out he wore a couple of watches, but what he mainly wore were these Bolivars. And so I thought it'd be cool to get the same watch Roger Moore was wearing in the original Saints. So this came up. It's not, I wouldn't say it's absolutely exactly the same model. It's very similar to what he wore. He wore a couple of different ones, but this is the right age. It's kind of the right size. Again, it's like 30 millimeter. Nice little watch. So it's about as close as I could get to what he was wearing. Again, this was blinking grotty, giving it a good polish up, but it's a really nice quality watch, beautiful quality watch. And I put it on this NATO style strap. And I've worn this a few times. Let's give it a... Usually this is working very nicely. I haven't had it serviced or anything like that. It just works. It keeps good time. And you can see it's got the small second dial at the bottom, which is working now. It's very, very slim, this watch. It's like super slim. That's another reason I put it onto this NATO style strap, is it bulks out a little bit underneath because the strap goes underneath the watch itself. It just gives it a little bit more presence. I'm remembering now. Okay, so this originally came on one of those Fixie Flex straps. One of those. And it was a bit bent up or whatever. I didn't like it on it so much. I preferred it on that. Don't ask me why, but I just think it looks nice on that NATO style rather than the Fixo Flex. That suits it on that little watch. It suits it, but it didn't suit it so well on this because the watch is a bit nicer than that strap, if that makes sense. So I'm sure it would probably look better on a leather strap, but I just like the way it bulked it out. It just made it look a little bit more presence on the wrist, not too small. So I'll definitely be keeping that. So this was one I really, as I said, I really cleaned this one up. I'm remembering now, I did do a video about this one. I did clean the dial, and I know they say you shouldn't clean it, but I used a cotton bud. Obviously I've got excuse me. I use a cotton bud in a little bit of warm washing up liquid, I think, just a tiny bit, slightly damp, and then just wiped it over. Just to get the debris, very careful, not taking off any lettering or anything like that, and not touching the hands. So just kind of just dabbing away with a moist kind of cotton bud, and it cleaned up the dial really nicely. So that's that one. That's all those done. So getting near the end. So the other ones I've got which need winding are really just in this one here. So in this box there is a couple of watches which won't wind, they won't even work. But I've kept them anyway because I like them. So this one, oh, this is a bit of fun. That came up. So that is an original Elvis Presley signature watch. So it's got his signature on it. Obviously he didn't sign it, but it's a proper memorabilia, whatever you call it, of the time, 1977. So it's a mechanical watch, proper little mechanical watch. This was absolutely filthy. This was really grotty. One of the worst ones I've had. It was pretty disgusting, but yeah, I cleaned it up. Even still got the original strap on. I thought it might fall to bits. It's cracked a little bit where I had to clean the strap. It was just absolutely filthy. It's probably made it crack a little bit where it dried out. And you've got this kind of gold-plated case. And I think it's like a 38 millimeter, something like that, 36. And it does work. It works, keeps good time. And this was very cheap as well. I think I paid like £7. I've got a video about this one as well. I can't remember the exact price I paid for it, but I did make a note of that on the video, the price I paid. And it's quite collectible. I did look it up. There's a few examples on Google, and they you know, they kind of make 60, 70 quid. So hopefully that was a good buy, especially now it's cleaned up, it's working. Quite not a bad quality. I think it's probably made in China or whatever, but it's not too bad. It's lasted the test of time. And anyone who's into Elvis collectibles and stuff like that, it's the proper thing. So it's going to be collectible to somebody. or worth something to somebody. But I'm going to keep hold of it because I like it. I did even wear this out one evening for a laugh. I got a mate who's quite into all this, and he really liked it. He's into his watches as well. He was like really impressed with it. I didn't expect. I thought he was going to laugh at it. He's like, "That's really cool." So there's that. There we go. There's the Omega Constellation. So that was my granddad's. That I've already spoken about. If you go back into the live feed, I did speak about this. We've got that working. Lovely automatic. Really nice condition. Was probably sitting in a drawer for like best part of 20 or 30 years, and it's working and keeping perfect time. So what a good movement, what good quality watch that is. It can be sat around for that amount of time. You give it a few shakes, and the thing is keeping good time. It's keeping charge, everything. It's cleaned up beautifully. The gold plating, apparently these are gold capped. So the gold, it's got like stainless steel, I think, there, but these lugs, which they call them dog legs on the style, this Constellation pie pan, is gold capped. So it's a bit like a tooth that's capped with gold. So it's like a proper gold piece that caps around rather than plating. So that's why they're so hard wearing. But the strap itself, I think, is just gold plating. That's got some scratches on it. But the case is, I think, like 18 karat gold capped. Some of these are solid gold. Not the one I've got, unfortunately. But you get ones with the date. This one hasn't got a date. So the ones with the date that are solid gold are obviously big money. But this one is still very, very collectible. You know, so that's a really nice watch. I didn't quite realise what it was until I looked into it. How desirable it is and what a good watch it is. So that's a touch. The first Omega I got because I really wanted Omega. Obviously, collecting watches, you want an Omega. Anyone who's been following my videos will know about this watch. So the first one I got was a non-working Omega DeVille quartz. This one, and I just paid like £80 for it. Giving it a real good clean up. This is gold plated. It's not gold capped. It's proper, I think, like 18 karat gold plated. Again, similar strap to that other one. So a lovely looking watch, really nice condition. Doesn't work. Looked into getting it working, and it costs a fortune to get the original Omega quartz movement. This is from 1970s. So hundreds of pounds to get that sorted out. But then I found out a cheat is you just get a generic quartz movement and pop that in there. Well, I say pop that in there. I took it to my jeweler's. I haven't got the tools to get those hands off and whatnot. So I paid £70. That included the movement, and he put a quartz movement in there, which has the date as well, and still originally used the original. You put the crown onto the quartz movement's stem. So I've got that pulled out at the moment just to save the battery. There is no second hand on these. So even if I pop that in, you won't see it working, but it is working. It's keeping perfect times. Obviously, it's a modern quartz movement. So nobody would know. I've got the original quartz movement. So if I ever sell it, it's there. I can obviously put it all with the watch. But I do wear this. I do wear this. I love that watch. It's a really nice looking watch, which is unusual. I'm not big into gold watches. I kind of like stainless steel watches more. But I'm a bit pale at the moment because it's winter. When you get a bit of a tan, gold doesn't look too bad. But it's quite a stunning looking watch. It does look pretty classy. And you're not going to see many people wearing one of those. So they're a bit more, most people into Omegas don't really like this style. But I like it. I do enjoy wearing that occasionally. So for what, £80 for the watch, £70, £150 all in, nice working Omega. And I'm pleased with that. I'm definitely keeping hold of that one. That's not going anywhere. Yeah, and this whole row is basically the gold. This one came up. That's Casio quartz, so don't need to wind that, obviously. That was a few pounds. But again, it's late 1970s, I think. This one, pretty rare. It's rare. I've given it a good clean up. It's cut like mint. You can see there's hardly any wear on that at all. Really come up like mint. And had to put a new battery in it, which is working. Again, it's not something I'm going to wear, but it's nice if if you collect watches, you're probably going to end up with a couple of Casios. I'm not going to go crazy collecting Casios, but it's nice to have a couple of them, and that's an interesting one. So I'll pull that out in a minute. I'll pull that crown back out in a minute. But the first square gold watch that I purchased was this one, Seiko Chronos. Again, late 1970s. Is a quartz. A really cool looking watch. I like this. I wore this quite a bit actually. It's got a screw down crown. And this cost me just a few pounds. I've got a video again if you want to see more about this watch. I do have the video about it. And I clean this up a lot. This is what I'm talking about. Screw down crowns you've got to be so careful with. Oh, it's got the Japanese. Can you see? You go Sunday and you go back and then it has, I think that's Japanese character. So you can either have it on Japanese writing or the English. It's water resistant. That's it, it's screwed in now. And on this one, I cleaned it up. The glass was very, very, very scratched, but they have, I think, like a hard-lex glass. So I polished this up as much as I could. I think I used wet and dry, different grades. And that is a lot better than it was. It was, I don't know what had happened with this watch, what the guy was doing. He must have been, I don't know, I can't imagine what he was doing that got this glass as scratched up as it was. But this is a lot better than it was. And what I did to make this, it got to a stage where I cleaned it up as much as I could. I think it's like a hard-lex glass, so it's really hard to get the scratches out, even using wet and dry. But it did improve it. And then I looked up, you can get nano liquid. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. You can buy something called nano liquid, and it's what people put on phones. And it creates, you drop a few drops of this nano liquid on, and then it levels off, kind of self-levels, and it hardens. And people use it for phones. And I think it's like £4 for a little, tiny little bottle, but you don't need much. So I thought, that's cool. And I still got some left. And I tried that. So at the end, it may have worn down a bit because I've worn this watch a lot. But it basically, when I put the nano liquid on, the scratches disappeared because it kind of froze the light. So it gives like a protective clear cover and it fills those little scratches. So that's like a little tip. If you have got a watch and it's covered in scratches, you can get this little nano liquid stuff that you use to protect mobile phone glass. Pop it on and you just kind of go like that. So the liquid all goes round evenly and then it goes off and hardens, and it really does work. And so I wore that a lot, quite a long, almost good part of a year. I was almost wearing that every day. But I haven't worn it for a while now. And I'm keeping hold of that because it's pretty interesting. It's got the water-resistant waves on the back there. Not seen that before. That's a proper old Japanese looking Seiko. And then I got this one recently. Again, doesn't need winding. It's actually working at the moment. Citizen quartz, really nice condition. It did need a good clean up. I think I've done a video on this as well. If you're interested, you can look back at it. And this was just a few quid, like 6 quid. I can't remember, something like that. Proper little Japanese 1980s citizen quartz. So again, they don't really make this style anymore, do they? So it's just interesting. It is part of watch history, these things. And they're very durable. Pop that back. Okay, so this one, yeah, this is a nice watch. This is Seiko. This was part of inheritance again, giving us a good old clean up. It was pretty rough, really pretty dirty. It'd been worn a lot, but it's come up really nicely. It has this, it's automatic. And there you go. It has this stopwatch feature. How would you do it? Yeah. Should be able to put that back, shouldn't I? That's it. It snaps up to the top. Just had to see what I was doing there. So yeah, very interesting watch. This is very collectible. 1970s chronograph automatic. So I'm keeping hold of that. Won't be selling that one. Okay, something completely different. A little Russian watch, really beaten up when I bought this. Just saw it, it's a Pobeda. Had a hard life, very hard life. Although the crystal's not too bad, but I've heavily kind of polished this up as much as I can. I put it on this NATO style strap, but it actually works, keeps good time. It's probably not as old as it looks. They had very old-fashioned designs, you know, it's Russia, a little bit behind the times probably with their styling. So that's probably 1980s, that watch, believe it or not, looking at it. You'd think it was like 1880s, wouldn't you? But no, it's probably 1980s. And from Russia. So that one, again, that was, God, £3 or £4, something like that. Works nicely though. What I was actually after, which I got recently, is I wanted a Vostok. So you can see this one's working at the moment, but it's problematic. It's not working properly. You give it a shake, it'll work. It's not an automatic, by the way. You're meant to wind it, but it needs a service. It definitely needs a service. But I paid like £10 for this, I think. I've got a video about this as well if you're interested. Again, giving it a bit, you know, good old clean up. It has a screw down crown, and it has this rotating bezel. I jokingly said it's very silent, and I said that must be because you can see the submarine there. I'm convinced that's so they could turn their bezel in the submarine and not alert the Americans, because any noise in a submarine obviously is detectable. So they needed a silent bezel. You couldn't have a bezel that clicked. No, I'm joking. I can't believe that's the reason. It's probably because it's expensive to put a clicking mechanism in. I don't know. But yeah, it's called Commander. So the Russian writing there, that spells Commander. Not spells, says Commander. But for 10 quid, even though it's not working, I wanted one of these. I'll keep hold of it for now. Chances of getting a really good working one, you've got to spend quite a bit of money to get one of those. Right, so this is, look at this crazy 1970s watch from Buller. This is cool. Really chunky. I mean, if you hit someone with that, you're doing some damage. That is heavy. Kind of brushed stainless steel. Give it a little wind. This one is working well. It's keeping good time. Haven't had to do anything apart from give it a good clean up, polish. It's come up really nice. It's very, I mean, it's a basic mechanism. Don't get me wrong. It's not a high quality mechanism in there, but robust. It's a very robust watch. It's put together well. Everything's pretty chunky. It's definitely got a strong, the Buller, they did really kind of strong styling, very 1970s. I mean, that bracelet is something else, isn't it, with the big links. I mean, you couldn't put another bracelet on there because you've got this centerpiece. You're not going to fit anything on there. So if that breaks, you've had it. But I don't think it will break because it's so flipping solid. And I've worn this a couple of times actually. It's not that crazy looking. I mean, it is crazy looking, but it's interesting enough looking to wear. You're not going to see many people wearing one of those. Yeah, so that was done a video on that. That's a few quid. It wasn't too expensive. You haven't got to spend a fortune. And for ages, I was after a jump watch. So the success story on this isn't quite so good. It's another Buller. Oh, this thing's not focusing. It's getting cloudier and cloudier outside. Started off sunny. And again, I've given it a good clean up. I did manage to get this working a little bit, but it stopped again. It wasn't working. I bought it not working. And I dropped a little bit of lighter fluid onto the balance wheel jewel and it started working, but now it stopped. So it needs a service. I don't know if I'm going to bother. I've seen it working. Is it going to work? Sometimes. Maybe now the weather's a bit warmer. No, don't think it's going to go. I mean, it's not an automatic, but it's by moving it, it was starting to work. No, well, I've kept hold of it. It's a real chunky jump watch. Yeah, I've seen it working. I know if you've got it serviced, that will be good to go. That will work. But the value of these isn't too bad. So it didn't cost me very much at all. But I think like really working, maybe 80, 90 pounds. But then, you know, you've got to pay what? On eBay, you can pay £50. You can send the watch off and they will service it. It's probably a basic service. I don't know how well they strip it down or how they do it, but for £50 you can get a basic service. I'm not sure if I really want to spend that. I'm probably not going to wear it anyway. I just wanted one for the collection. So it's just at that point, you know, I've seen it working. I know it does work, although it's packed up again now. I kind of wanted one. It's not something I'm going to wear. It's just nice to pull out and have a look at. So, you know, I think I'll just keep hold of it for now. I'm not going to bother getting it serviced or pay out to get it serviced. Hang on, that's messing with my OCD. That's around the wrong way. Can't have that. So this one, little Cannondale, what's it called? Not Cannondale. Carronade. Automatic watch. This one works really nicely. I've given this a really good polish up. Again, I did a video on this one. It was pretty grotty. It's come up really nicely, just with a good clean and polish and whatnot. So carronades were made by, what's it called? I've forgotten the word. I can't think. They're made, but they're shared with another company, which I can't think of the word. But if you look at the video, I do mention it. It'll probably come back to me. But apparently, they were in-house for Ratners, but this is predates Ratners. This is well old because I used to work for Ratners, so it's definitely, this is like 1970s. I'm trying to think of that name of this. It's like a name of a woman. The name of the watch manufacturer, which is basically the same as this. I don't know if it says it on the back actually. I think it does. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, it does. Teresa. It's coming back to me. I haven't even had to read it. Teresa. That's it. Swizz. So it's Tressa, which are better well known. They're pretty good quality. It's got a nice looking movement inside there. And that's original, isn't it? On the original strap, you can see it all looks pretty original. You've got the day window at the bottom. I don't think these wind. They just work on the automatic. So let's give it giving it a thing, shake, because that's why I'm doing this video, by the way. If you just tuned in, I've got all these watches out because periodically or every couple of weeks, I need to wind the ones that need winding to keep them going. So I'm just doing a little live to show you the watches and talk about them a little bit. And you can see that's working nicely. So pop that. We're getting to the end really. I've just got you a couple of other watches to show you which are in the other box. My last box. So I started buying these boxes because it's just a good way of storing your watches is in these display boxes, and you can pick these up for about £10. So these ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 12 box. My friend gave me that one. He started me off. He gave me that box. I didn't consider you could buy boxes. So after that, I got all my watches out and started buying these boxes. Oh, TSP, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, okay, so I'm going to show you the ones that are in this box. Before I do that, I did buy another Omega a while back, a pocket watch. I think everyone who collects watches has probably got a slight interest in pocket watches. I thought I want a pocket watch. Didn't want to spend a fortune. This one came up, and it was again in quite a bad state. The kind of door wasn't shutting on it, and it wasn't working, or didn't seem to work. But I've given it a good polish up. I kind of had to bend the doors back a bit. I say doors, these, not doors, it's not technical, is it? These things, there we go. It's silver plated, it's not solid silver, unfortunately. Break my fingernail again. Oh, here we go. So there's the, get a bit more light. Yeah, so this cost me £60. It is Omega, so it's probably the cheapest way you're going to buy an Omega is perhaps by buying a pocket watch. And you wind this, you set the time by pulling the crown out and wind. So it's not got a key. Some of the older pocket watches have like a little key. And this will work. Yeah, give it a shake, it definitely will work. And this keeps pretty good time. I would say it goes fast by about 5 minutes a day, which sounds a lot, doesn't it? It's okay, so it's fast, but it's for such an old thing. Again, I'm not going to bother getting that service. I'm just pleased it works. And it didn't work. It does work because I think I did put a little bit of drop of lighter fuel onto there, which can rejuvenate the oil that's underneath there, and it did it enough and it just sprung into life. So I'm not trying to damage anything, and obviously maybe it's probably not a good thing to do, but it does sometimes work. It usually makes it a bit fast, but it gets it going anyway. So at least it's working. Before it wasn't working, now it's working. Nicely cleaned up. Nice little Omega pocket watch. from, I would think, I've got it on the video I did about this. I did kind of research it because you can research the serial number, I think, on these and everything. So I think it's like 1940s. Could be wrong. So I'll pop that in there. Well, I don't really want to buy pocket watches. It's not something I'm that interested in, but it's nice to have one. So the last box of anything mechanical is getting a lot more modern now. So these are watches I probably wear a lot because I'm not wearing vintage watches every day. So I told you about the old Invicta I got. That's the Invicta Speedway, which I don't wear. The first Invicta I bought. So I used to wear this. So this was my go-to watch, this Seiko chronograph quartz. I wore this for years and years and years and years. And when the battery packed up, that's when I got the Invicta, because I thought I'd fancy something else. Plus this strap, this buckle wasn't doing up properly. I've since fixed it, ironically, and I've cleaned the watch up. And it's a lovely watch, and I put a new battery in it. And that will be working. I've just got the crown. No, it is working. I've left it working, haven't I? That's right. So there's a new battery in there. I left it working. So that got me buying that, which I can't really read without my reading glasses, which then I looked up Invicta again. I thought, I'll get one that I can read a bit better. This one came up, and that's the Invicta Pro Diver. This is a 42mm, and this is an automatic watch, so we'll give that a good... I haven't worn this for a little while because I'm wearing my Pagani at the moment, but yeah, this is a great watch. And you know, obviously watch snobs aren't gonna like it. It's obviously a Submariner, a homage type thing. It's on a Jubilee style strap, but yeah, good watch. It's got the Seiko NH35, is it? And I put a different bezel. So this is a ceramic bezel. If you look back at my videos, this came with an aluminium bezel, and the pip thing had fallen off and it was starting to get scratched. And I'd done a bezel swap on my Pagani, so I thought, I wonder if I can do it on this. It wasn't as easy. The sizes aren't quite right, and I had to use a Dremel with an attachment to make it a little bit smaller on the outside and on the inside so it'd fit in. And I mucked up a little bit on the inside. Don't look too close, you can see where it's bit in a little bit, but it's in there. And it still looks, even with, you don't really notice it unless you look hard. If you look in the light, you can see just here, it not quite round. You can see where the Dremel bit in a little bit too much. Yeah, that was tricky. I did a video on this. If you look back, if you're interested in doing bezel swaps, especially on Invicta, you can't buy the bezels that fit. They've got a slightly different size. So I had to basically adjust that bezel to fit. And it's a little bit proud as well. It's not quite, because the aluminium one is so, it's like Coke can thin, the aluminium bezels they've got on them. They're not really good quality. So this ceramic bezel is thicker, slightly different angle to it, I guess, but it looks all right. I think that looks, even though I mucked it up a little bit, I'm not going to bother doing it again. It's good enough. It tells the story of when I did it. I still wear this occasionally, so that's working. Not bad for 60 odd quid. It's quite a cool looking watch. Then I've got this one, which I'm wearing most of the time now, although it's been off my wrist for a couple of days. Being a weekend, I put something else on. That's my daily Pagani. This had the Pepsi bezel on it, Pepsi style bezel, and that was aluminium. Didn't like that, so I bought for about 5 quid, 6 quid this ceramic bezel, and this is the correct size. Luckily, these are, you take the old one out, you put this in, fits in perfectly. So I did a video on how to do that, and this is a GMT, and this watch was 60, 70 pounds, something like that, and it's got the Seiko NH35 movement in this one. I was going to show you, I can't. This one has a yellow rotor, so that's the NH35A, which is a really reliable Seiko movement. automatic movement. They got like a standby of like 70 hours, I think, on them. This is a GMT, so it's the NH36, apparently. This also has a glass back. So you've got that. Someone asked me, so I've gone quiet because I'm just looking. Let me just have a look at something. While I've got this out, I want to zoom in. Yeah. NH34A, sorry, NH34A. So the guy who messaged me saying, oh, you've got the Chinese movement in that. I've not. That is the NH34A movement. So that is the Seiko one. It's a better movement. I know it's got like 70-hour standby. So on these Pagani design ones, they did the cheaper one with, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically a Chinese movement in there. And then this one was a bit more expensive that had the NH34A movement, which is the one I want because obviously reliability. You want reliability. The other ones can pack up or they can go fast and all this type of thing. I mean, automatic movements, I mean, they're not going to be spot on. Even Rolexes, they can be out by, you know, an increment of time over time. The most accurate watch is probably going to be a quartz, you know, something like that. If you want accuracy, you get that, or you get that. The iconic Casio F91W. The light is fading, so I'll be wrapping this up pretty soon. Here we go. It's not even, what time is it? It's like lunchtime. It's getting dark. F91W. Yeah, that one. If you want accuracy, you get that. But yeah, they're not bad. They're not bad. That's my go-to everyday watch. I love that. I wish I could afford the real Rolex Batgirl. Wouldn't that be nice? Or the Pepsi. If you can even get hold of one, you've got to buy a used one pretty much. You can't walk into a shop and buy one. Not that I would anyway. Can't afford it. So the other one I got was this Pagani Air King homage. It's got a bit of, there we go. And that's got the Seiko NH35, is it 35? Movement in it. That's not got exhibition back. That's got a metal back, so I can't show you the movement. Really beautiful watch. It's absolutely identical, really, to the Rolex, pretty much. I don't know how they got away with it, really, actually. It is so the same. Apart from, obviously, it doesn't say Rolex on it. It's really, really, really similar. I'm sure the dimensions are probably slightly out here and there. But if you put one, you know, up to next. When I was in Malta, I went to the Rolex shop near Slima, and I was looking through the window. I think I did a short on it, and one of the Air Kings was in there, and I was wearing this one in Malta, and so I could just see it side by side pretty much. Although it was in the window display, but crikey, I tell you what, it looks very, 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 very similar. For, well, this is £60. I think it might have even been less than that. Was this £48? Something like that. It wasn't a lot of money. I got a good deal on that. Nice watch. It's the sort of thing I'll probably travel with. I can read it without reading glasses, and I was swimming in it. Don't have to, it doesn't take too much attention. So for instance, when I went to Rome a couple of years ago and I wore this one. And of course that looks like a Rolex Submariner. And there was a guy hassling me a little bit. I was walking through the bit where you got that column on the way to the Colosseum. There's a bit, I had to walk down these stairs, and there was a guy kind of trying to sell stuff like they do. And I was kind of, there wasn't that many people around, and it was hot, so I was wearing a t-shirt, had this on. And he straight away is, oh, Rolex black and white. And I thought, oh, you know, this is dodgy. It's kind of dodgy. And it's not. Obviously, it's not a Rolex. But it does, it's a bit, does bring a bit of attention. So if someone thinks it is, they could mug you for it. That's what I'm basically getting to. So it made me feel a bit uncomfortable. So when I went back to Malta, I just wore that one because it doesn't bring so much attention. It's a nice looking watch, but unless you knew your watches, you wouldn't know that was meant to be a Rolex Air King or whatever. So yeah, that's all the wind-up watches. That's just a little Rip Curl I bought from eBay for a few pounds. I used to do a lot of windsurfing and stuff like that. I used to have an animal surf watch. I remember seeing a Rip Curl watches at the surf store that I went to. So this one came up, again, a few pounds. But these are quite expensive, brand new. They're quite good quality, although it's surf make, kind of fashion make, as you say. They're not actually bad watches. And they're made to be able to go do water sports. So they are water resistant and whatnot. So they're not too bad. It's even got a rotating bezel. So that all works. And yeah, the Casios, which I bought, these two, although they look new, they're used. I gave them a good clean up, bought them just for a few quid. And that one, which the calculator watch, which was in Back to the Future 2, I believe. I love that watch, but without my reading glasses, I can't really see the display. It's quite small. It's the same with that one. I love it, and I have worn that abroad and things, but I've got to squint a bit to see. This one, it's got a bigger display, the Illuminator, which is kind of like a poor man's G-Shock. I think I paid like 8 quid or something for that. And I gave it a bit, it was a used one. I've given it, when you clean it up like new, you know. Luckily there wasn't too many scratches. There's a couple of tiny, very light scratches. But apart from that, it's come up pretty mint. Same with that. It's come up pretty mint. So I'm pleased with that. So I'm going to round up this live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. How do I switch this off?